What is going on? We are back with another fantastic episode of Survivor Wisconsin Season 6, One World. Rich Doug, how the heck are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing pretty damn good. How are you doing tonight, Devin?
I'm doing good, except my Survivor Wisconsin dream is over. If you watched with the comeback challenge, we'll get into it all. Pretty iconic, historic tribal council we'll get into. Comeback challenge, a fun challenge, individual immunity that maybe took longer than we thought, but it was still enjoyable to watch. I'm excited to break it down. I honestly think this is probably one of the better episodes so far this season. What do you think?
I definitely think it was a really fun episode to watch. Obviously, very historic in some ways. We'll definitely get to that in a little bit, but yeah, I think we should probably get right into it unless there's something else you want to say.
No, kick it off with the comeback challenge, sir.
Yeah, so the challenge immediately starts with the comeback challenge. This is actually a new challenge that we did that has not been done in Whitewater, Wisconsin, and it was not even done in SNC. I will say what the challenge is, and I'll say where I got the inspiration for it from. Essentially, the challenge is that I gave everyone a paper with at the top 3 words: return, revenge, redemption. And everyone had to take letters within each of those 3 words and make out of those words, or cannot speak tonight, out of those letters, you had to make 15 new words. They could not be return, revenge, redemption, and they had to at least be 4 letters long. However, there was also a caveat I put in there where at least one other word had to be 5 letters, one other one had to be 6 letters, and one other word had to be 7. But then if they wanted to, the rest could be like 4 or more. 4 was just the minimum. And the words could not be return, revenge, and redemption. And I definitely got the inspiration from I'm assuming you've watched Survivor Pearl Islands, that season.
Yeah, great season.
Yeah, I love that season. Sandra is a moother in that season. I can get loud too. I'm gonna quote that next time. Anyways, but I got the inspiration from like one of that challenge, which I think they actually got inspired by a fan even before that. So if I remember that reunion episode correctly from that season, but oh my gosh, remember actual reunion shows? I feel old thinking about that. I've had back
for 50.
I'm thinking about old Survivor.
I know. Hopefully it's back for 50. I think it will be.
Better be. I think everyone has a bone to pick with Jeff Probst right now, but that's a different story. Anyways, yeah. So, jokes aside, yeah, I got the inspiration from that challenge, and I kind of thought to kind of like format it because there were a lot of different comeback challenge ideas I had. Initially, I did actually want to do the plank because when I did Survivor SNC, I did that challenge twice as a comeback challenge, and then I kind of did review it with other people in production, and one of the biggest concerns I heard was that it'd be too physical, and that if they weren't physical enough, it wasn't going to be like, it would be too skewed that way. The other idea was this challenge from Survivor SNC that I almost did. It was kind of like the color matching one we've done a few times, except it was with numbers, which I don't think I have enough time to share that funny story now, but like, it wasn't even that difficult, but it's not really, it's kind of just with numbers instead of colors, but I definitely thought about that, but then I kind of thought like, it's kind of like just didn't feel as exciting, and I feel like it could go on too long. And then eventually I got to the challenge we did, and before I even get to like how it ended, the results of it, I thought it was a fun challenge to do. I think maybe it could have been swapped out with another challenge we did later down the line, but I mean, I think for what we got out of it, it was pretty interesting. I definitely wanted to also have it be a different type, where I feel like every comeback challenge is usually something different. Like we've seen Summer Solstice, it was like a trivia comp. Evolution, it was a lot more like skill based, where you had to like a lot of precision and accuracy with it. In Cabin Fever, it was kind of like a mix of it. And I'm trying to remember I think it was like Fans versus Favorites and Went to War. It was a lot more physical. So, I kind of wanted to add on to kind of keep it a different variant. And obviously, there were some successes and failures with it. I thought it went pretty damn well. I did have a couple of ideas. I did change the challenge a couple times too, not to drone on more about it, but I initially had it where they could have possibly done 3-letter words, and it would have expanded it to be like 20 words overall with a minimum of like X 3-letter, X 4-letter, whatever. But like I was like, no, shortened it to 15, and the rest is history from there. So, yeah. Do you want me to say who won, or is there any other things that you want to say about this challenge before
Yeah,
we?
you can say one, and then I'll share my thoughts on it.
Yeah. So ultimately, it actually was a very close battle between Devin and Dolphin Sam, but ultimately Dolphin Sam won by one word. Which I'm not even gonna lie, Devin, you actually were very, very close. Actually, like I didn't get a chance to really look at your paper, but you being one word off alone, and like Sam initially thought he had it, and for those people who didn't really see it, it's one of Sam's words because he raised his hand twice. It was like done, but first time he wrote down an abbreviation, which I thought I told him wasn't acceptable because that was another caveat to this is that you couldn't use like pronouns or like people's names or like nicknames or abbreviations or all acronyms or whatever. And I mean, he kind of put down temp, which is an abbreviation for like temporary or whatever, you know, probably for another couple words I'm not thinking of right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he put that down and I kind of looked at Christian and I'm like, I don't think so. But like we both were, me and Christian looked at each other, we're like, no. And then he changed it. I thought it was note.
Mode. Mode.
What?
I think he did mode.
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 Okay, yeah. I forgot the word exactly. I've had a very hectic last few days. So
Right?
yeah, so like I think that's what it was. Regardless, Sam won the game. He got back in the game. And I definitely think it added a bit of very interesting conflict to this round overall.
Oh yeah.
But that is kind of what happened to the challenge. Like just to close off my thoughts for this challenge overall.
Yeah.
I did think it was pretty fun. Maybe it could have been swapped out with a challenge we'll see later down the line that I'm not going to say right now, but it was definitely I think okay for what we got out of it. In terms of just trying to like shake up the meta a little bit and like see different things, you know, and try out new ideas. So this was one idea that this was the first time we had ever done it. So I'll pass on to you, Devin.
Yeah, I mean, I did get close. Honestly, thought going into it, I had no shocks. I'm not really good at like kind of like riddle puzzle kind of stuff. I wish it was something a little bit different. I do like what we did. Like I thought it was a cool challenge for a comeback, like life on the line to come back. I wish it was something different. But you know, it is what it is. I had a fair shot to get in. I got close, and Sam deserved it. He got it. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I wish it was something a little bit more fun, I guess, to watch maybe, or like maybe like a couple, like maybe it was like mental, physical, and I know we didn't have like a ton of time either, so
Okay.
I mean, obviously I lost, so it's like, yeah, I wish it wasn't that, but I do think maybe in the future, like we just live and you learn and you try different things out, and it is what it
Right.
is, and
Right.
maybe
And
if I won it, I wouldn't even like say that. But I mean, I kind of zoomed in on myself, kind of rolling my eyes when you were saying what it was, because I'm like, because it wasn't that I like hated it. I was just like, I'm not going to win this, but I did get close, so I'm happy with that. But I will say, going out there, I'll say too that Christian announced that everybody out and going forward was going to be members of the jury. So I was excited about that. That I'd at least get a say at the end of who wins the game and kind of give my 2 cents of some BS of why they got me out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know when I'll come back, but I will be coming back to play again. I'm not ending on that note, no way in hell. So, people might not give me a chance again. If that's the case, it is what it is, but I'm going to have to try to make them give me a shot. So that's all I'll say. I mean, it was still a cool challenge. I mean, wouldn't be my first choice for a comeback, but I think like that challenge could have been cool, maybe more in like a, team aspect where it's like part of a challenge or like at the very end instead of a puzzle, for, future reference. So I think it was a good idea. I just think maybe use it in a different aspect of like a challenge. So that's all I gotta say.
right. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, like there's some parts of it that like I think worked well. Some parts of it, like I said, that didn't. Because when I was planning this out, I did think it'd be a little like, more exciting on paper, but again, I think that is definitely something that not just in SNC, but even this season, over the years I've learned, and just like some things definitely look better on paper than they do in execution. Sometimes ideas can be too complex. Sometimes they just aren't as exciting to watch. Sometimes they are very exciting and complex in a great way. I think sometimes it just depends on everything that goes on. But like I am definitely still really happy. It definitely is like because I know like we both have said this. I've said this a lot the last week when we were talking about this challenge, that it's kind of like live and learn, and like, you know, experiences we got from not just this challenge in particular, but the season as a whole. So I'm not gonna lie, I actually, you know, did not notice you rolled your eyes. I don't remember you rolling your eyes.
You gotta look it back. I zoom in on myself, kind of going like when you're explaining it. Like, you gotta look at it. It's funny. I made fun of myself on it by zooming in.
Iconic. But I just hear that, you know, to hear that you're gonna come back someday. You know, hopefully.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, I totally get where you're coming from, because that's the reason why in Evolution, not to go on a rant about Evolution again for like the 800th time since then, but that's exactly how I felt after Evolution. It was kind of like I needed a breather because I was sick of no one giving me an opportunity, but then seeing the same like 5 to 6 people get to play over and over and over and over and get to the final 5, and I'm like, so why can't I play? Like, you know?
I mean that's exactly how I felt, because every other returner that was there to play is still left, you know. So that was kind of tough. And then for me, it was more. I never got out.
Sorry,
I've never. It's all right. I've never gotten out that early, but it was more frustrating just because I think the reasoning was kind of poor why they got me out, in my opinion, and then just that I waited so long to play. That's why it was more frustrating than anything. But we can move on about me and kind of just get into this episode, because
I was going to say the last part of it is that I kind of feel like all the greats have a season or two where they go out early, or in my case, like 4, where everyone goes out early. Like Hunter, 2-time winner, went out early in Legends. He likes to blame me. I've told him it's not. I'm moving on from that. Christian had the first One World, which was 3 weeks after my first season. Trying to think. Brienne obviously had my first season. Brienne was out like very early on, the first winner of the Whitewater series and of Idol Identifiers in general. Obviously, every great player has their bad season. You know, some go out earlier than they should.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this was a season where, like, because I've told you before that flat out, if I mean, I don't rake seasons. I never do. But if I would have, you would have at least made it past this point. So I was definitely kind of shocked that, because you're a lot smarter than you give yourself credit for. It's like the fact that you did get close. I was definitely like, yeah, he's definitely at least going to get up to that point, you know? So it's definitely, I don't want to say minor or matter in this state. You definitely wanted it. And
yeah, I mean, it honestly, like I said, when the episode I got out on, Colin doesn't win that immunity challenge and he goes out instead of me. I mean, who knows what would happen? So it is what it is. You know, you'll see me again talking on the jury, and I'll definitely give my 2 cents of still being kind of bitter of them getting me out. But, you know, it is what it is. So let's kind of move on.
Yeah, that's the last part I wanted to say about that, but we can move on.
Yeah.
Get back to I think we kind of get back to back like confessionals from, I think, everyone, I believe.
Yeah, it was everyone right before like we started the merge over pretty much.
Yeah, because the remerge essentially because now everyone's now back into one group. Hence the reason I have the orange one back on. Yeah, so we have the we kind of have Sam talking about an idol. There was a controversy about this that is kind of revealed later. You want me to talk about it now or later?
We can get into it. I think we can just say it now. I mean, because I didn't find this out till like around the final 6 vote, after that whole thing happened. I was the last one to hear about this, which I was like, why am I the last one to hear about it? Christian went to give a confessional with Dolphin Sam, and I think if I recall correctly, I thought we hit like an idol or something around that time. So what I was initially told was that Sam had found an idol. Christian heard about it, told me about it. Not to throw Christian under the bus. I don't think he knew about how it was found until later on. But essentially what happens that everyone remembers, and as Matt so lovingly talked about it for like 5 minutes in the episode today, jokes aside, as Matt kept mentioning, Abby didn't play her idol last episode. Abby's not in the game. Abby somehow passed her idol on to Dolphin Sam, who came back into the game. And the rules of Survivor state that if, say, like, as example, if Abby has an idol, she goes out with the idol is dead. Same thing with any advantage. If she would have had, say, for example, an extra vote or steal a vote or whatever, she doesn't play it, it's out of the game. If it's replanted in the game, that's more of a production decision off of that point. It'd be very, like a very rare, but potentially, depending on what it is, I shouldn't say rare, but depending on what it is, it could be, but, you know, if it's out,
it's out, and if it does get back in the game, it has to be refound by someone else. So, but the long story short of it, is basically that like Sam technically shouldn't have had that idol because Abby gave it to him, and although it was revealed later on in the episode, the whole situation, I think that's actually when I found out about that situation. I was just like, how the hell did Abby get his like?
Yeah, I mean, I can maybe share some more information because I knew about it because Christian told me.
Yeah.
I mean, so pretty much what happened was, I believe Christian you guys had an idol like kind of behind tribal council, and I think Christian thought that's the one Sam found, but in reality, after Abby, so this happened after the comeback challenge, so after Sam won, so Abby's dead, like she's out of the game, she like her idol is dead at this point, and she just gave it over to Sam, and Sam acted like he found it, which I think is kind of shitty on his end, but I'm glad later on Christian called him out and he gave it up, because I mean, I'm glad he didn't tell anybody. You know, I get it. I mean, maybe you guys should have made that clear. Like, Abby obviously is first time playing; she didn't know.
Right.
My one question is because this does kind of come up in the episode, but I kind of think I maybe edited it out because I just wanted to touch on it more in this. So if Abby has her idol, if she would have came back in the game, is it dead then, or is she able to keep using it? That's a thing where I don't know if anyone knew that. You know
if
what I mean?
I was fully in charge of that decision, I don't want to say if I was fully in charge.
Yeah.
If it was my full call, because I don't know how Christian would. I think he possibly would have agreed with me on this.
Yeah.
I would just say that if she went out with it, even if she has a chance to get back in the game, she gets voted out within her pocket. It's gone.
Yeah. I do believe
that's how I would view it. That's how I would have handled it at like SNC.
Right.
Like at SNC, we did have that happen, I think, a couple times where someone would go out with an idol or an advantage or something, and then I would say like, hey, like, I'm sorry, even if you do get back in the game, you know, you have to find it again. And that's if I go and rehide it, which very big on that, depending on like the when, the where, the how, the who, and all the whatever, the 5 W's or whatever it was you taught me in first grade. But I mean, and then me in that situation, I was more aware. If I was fully aware of how that whole thing went down, I would have immediately went up to him and been like, "Hey, you can't do that, man. I'm sorry." Like,
I mean,
he would have got mad at me about it, but like,
I mean, because then we kind of see later, like Colin's asking if Sam did have an idol like prior, like is he able to, like if he did have one, say, like is he able to still have one? And he asked Christian, Christian said, "I'll get back to you on that," and then Christian, I don't know if I was in the episode or not, to be honest. I forgot if I left it or not, but Christian said, Colin, to answer your question, no, if he did have it before coming back, he wouldn't be able to use it. So I think more it's just, when Abby got out, you guys should have just took it from her right then and there. But that was like right when we like continued the comeback challenge. So I don't think anyone was really thinking about it, so.
Right. And I think that is definitely like something that, I mean, obviously live and learn from the future for that.
Yeah.
Like when we're in the moment, I think a lot of people watching probably don't get like in the moment. I think Devin, you definitely get this. Like when you're in the moment, you're hosting stuff. Sometimes things, like sometimes things kind of move on. Like things are like going fast left and right. And it's like, that's something that it's funny because the entire time after Abby got voted off, I'm thinking like, wow, she got voted off with an idol in her pocket. But then I'm not thinking, where's the idols? It's still in her damn pocket, which oversight on my part. I mean, again, live and learn. I was.
It is what it is. I'm glad. I'm glad Abby like confessed that that's what she did, because that could have caused more problems. But I will say it's a little shitty on Sam's end, kind of trying to play that off at first. I mean,
well, it could be a
villain
arc.
Well, there's a villain arc and then there's cheating, and that was pretty much cheating. Sorry, Sam. I mean, it is. It is what it is. I get it. I mean, it's tough. But that's just trying to take advantage of a new player that doesn't understand the rules, which I think is kind of BS personally. So I'm glad he didn't get to keep it, because he shouldn't have been able to at all.
Right. I mean, at least we got the idol. The idol wasn't in play, I guess, is the most important part. But Sam kind of talks about that. Kind of talks about him being back in the game. And I actually, even though I definitely was rooting for you to get back in the game, nothing against Sam. I was definitely happy Sam got back in the game, just because seeing him play the perfect game and come back again, I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
Getting back in, getting out, then getting back in. But I was definitely kind of like looking at you, like, even though you didn't get back in the game, Sam coming back in the game, I think presented a very interesting dilemma where I think all of them kind of talk about it collectively. that they see it as like a 3-3 thing, even though technically it's the 4 Hygeas versus Matt and Chris from the tribe expansion swap like thing we did.
Yeah.
It's essentially the Hygeas plus Chris and Matt. And so I definitely think it's kind of interesting that Sam is able to kind of, as we see during the episode, Sam does kind of play back and forth with this, but like all of them kind of collectively know it's 3v3 with Chris, Matt, and Sam versus Colin, Julia, and Caitlin, which I definitely kind of think. I mean, obviously, I'm not like just overall, not talking about just one by one, but like, just I think that's kind of the overall thing they start to think about as they're like starting to realize like the end game is near.
Yeah,
and this is what's starting to happen. It's 3-3. I do think that dilemma was pretty interesting. So,
if I guess maybe I shouldn't keep talking about myself, but if I would have came back, who do you think I would have went with?
Who do I think you would have went with?
Yeah.
I think you probably go for I would assume you would have tried to pull in Colin and Matt, and that you probably try to take out one of the other 3. My assumption is you probably would have tried to pull in Colin and Matt and try to go forward with them and maybe take one of the girls with you.
It's tough. I mean, it honestly probably would have depended on like how Matt and Chris explained like why I went out, kind of, because I never heard it at that point yet. So,
right? Yeah. Because I mean, just from the perspective of like how like because they were the ones with Sam a lot when they were playing your vote off. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we dive into the immunity challenge?
Yeah, unless there's something else you want to talk about with any of the other confessionals that they were all talking about.
No, I mean, I think you kind of covered it with just kind of everyone saying like, yeah, it's 3v3 kind of, and then Sam's idol.
Was one thing I forgot to mention. It's my season. It's Matt's season. Again with that.
That was funny.
It was funny, actually. The Matt going back to that, like, again, I said this before. I'll say it again. It's giving Russell Hantz. Like, it's giving Russell Hantz, but everyone knows Russell Hantz lost to Natalie White and Sandra Diaz-Twine. So is Matt going to be able to be the Russell Hantz that won? Or is someone going to come in and be a Natalie White or Sandra? Should Matt even get to that point? Because Russell went out early in a couple times.
Yep, so did Matt.
Right, exactly. So did Matt. So you never know. You never know what version of Russell Hantz is it going to be.
All right, let's dive into the challenge here.
This challenge, I will dive into that. Yeah, so for the challenge, this was one that I did do Survivor Recency once. It was one of my personal favorites that I didn't get a chance to redo. So when I saw this season, I was like, I want to try to fit this challenge in. Essentially, there are several tables, and on each table, there is a different riddle. So the first table, there is 6 riddles, 1 for each person. And then what they get, they cannot speak tonight. Holy. If they answer the riddle correctly, they can move on to the next table, the second table. However, at that second table, there's only 5 riddles, meaning that whichever person is the last one at the first table is out. This keeps going on and on. The third table is 4, the fourth table is 3, and the last table is only 2. Whoever solves that last riddle first wins immunity, save from the vote. Final 5, yada, 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 whatever Proxian version of it I said, like Final 5 or I don't know. But it was a fun challenge. I definitely liked it. Before we talk about who won the challenge, I do want to say that I did kind of find this a little entertaining with how long it took for them to get the riddles.
Especially the first one.
I didn't think it. Okay, I can kind of understand
how
that.
Flat out said the answer too on accident.
Well, I said they asked for a hint. I said TikTok. I said TikTok because
you said clock. Then you said clock. Yes.
No, I think I said time's ticking on a clock. I don't think
you said that, and then you said clock. Yeah, you actually said clock. That's an actual answer.
Well, the point overall.
They didn't catch on to it though at first.
Right, because I definitely remember saying TikTok as their hint, and they flat out like I remember Chris I think was the one who I remember saying like a clock, and Chris said something, and then Chris was all like clock, no, and
see Matt's comment there.
Yeah, I am. That's why I'm laughing. Hi, Matt. Anyways, but yeah, it was just kind of funny how some of the great players. I need to get my ears checked.
Did you compare yourself to a Survivor player?
compare myself to does Richie compare himself? Oh, like wait, is he talking about like me comparing him to Russell Hantz, or is he talking about me comparing myself to one of the greats at the time?
Yeah, you. Yeah, I think he's talking about you. I don't know if you did say that or not. I maybe forgot.
Now I think I said like some of the greats from Whitewater had their bad seasons, and I consider myself to be. I mean, I know I've had a few bad seasons the last few times.
Oh, I think he's saying like that. You're saying that you're a great player. I think that's
yeah. He's trashing me. Whatever.
all right. Back to the challenge here.
Yeah,
I'm gonna chime in a little bit here too.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It was fun to watch. It was funny that they couldn't get past the first round, and
Right.
I think it was a really good challenge. Actually, I liked it a lot, and yeah, I mean it's tough. And did you like kind of editing how I put the little like answers in the top corner?
I did like that. Yeah, because I did think I tried to do that when I did SNC. I tried to edit. Obviously, it's not the episodes aren't there anymore. Thank you, John Circle.
Yeah.
Anyways, bitchiness aside from that situation and how the episodes aren't there anymore. I did try to edit like that too, so I'm glad that you did something similar to that, which I was so glad you did, because I was like, it's fun. It's kind of like they get to interact with it. It's almost like an interactive element where they can kind of look at the riddle and kind of try to guess it. Right, try to figure it out. And if they figure it out, great. If not, I want to say quickly with the riddles too, I definitely looked online. I spent like a good few hours on it. I think it was about 5-6 days before, I want to say 4 to 6 days before. I spent like a few hours one night looking at riddles for hours until my head started hurting at like 2 to 3 a.m. And we got another comment from Matt I'll address in a second that just popped up. But anyway, some of the riddles were just really fun. I definitely tried to pick ones that weren't going to be too difficult, but that weren't going to be too easy, because obviously you want to have some element of a challenge in there. I think some of the riddles were great. Some of them maybe weren't as easy as I thought they could have been, but again, live and learn. I have a back cough this week. It's so annoying.
Yeah, it's all right. So I mean, it was. I'll keep it going. You can catch your breath there. But yeah, I mean, I think it was good. I think all the riddles were pretty good. They got stuck on the first one, a lot of them, and then that last one between Matt, Chris, and Sam, they got stuck for a while, and then we ultimately see Chris finding it out, and then Sam finding it out, but Chris got there just in time, and he got those last two, and Chris ended up winning immunity. It was a big one to have. 1 in 5 shot winning the game now. He definitely needed it. It's 3v3 like we were saying pretty much. So it's like, okay, that's one person people can't go for. So I think it was a fun challenge, and now we can maybe address Matt's comment here. Or you can.
There was another comment he put under that I actually like, so.
Yep.
Some of the great players going early, like you, Devin, talked about him going early in comparison to you. Yeah, Matt, I don't know if you've watched a lot of the Whitewater seasons. You probably should, actually, if you haven't, Matt. I definitely recommend some of the Whitewater seasons. Not to be narcissistic, but I definitely recommend my first season and fans versus favorites. Oh, thank you, Matt. I definitely tried to.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
All right, should we move on now to like the strategy part of after the challenge now, if you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so I think we pretty quickly see the ramifications of Chris winning immunity, as immediately everyone start, like Colin, Julia, Colin groups start coming together. I almost like going together. What am I saying? Coming together and looking at it and being all like, we gotta think about who we want to go. If they're starting to think if they should try to pull in Sam, Matt, or Chris to split the votes on the other ones, but then they're realizing like, well, we can't split it on Chris and one of the other two because Chris is immune. And I think that's kind of like a good, it's not like all the talks, but I know that's a good chunk of the talks, if I recall correctly, was them starting to think like, how can we pull in? Because I think they knew Chris probably wouldn't split with them. So I think that's, at least that's how I perceived it. Yeah. And so a lot of talk starts to come down to like, they want to go for Sam or Matt? And well, actually, Matt did just actually comment something talking about this situation. Actually, if we want to look into that, or unless we want to.
Yeah, I think it fits on what we're talking about.
Yeah, can I read it?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so Matt says, Matt's watching, commenting this live too. He says, "I'll say this since I'm here too. Sam approached me of trying to split the votes, and I had no clue, so I approached the girls about it, and then froze up."
Yeah, it's kind of like I think when he was saying like put 2 on Sam. And then Chris is like I think later said to Matt, "Why are you trying to split the vote? Like, relax. Like, kind of just like take a back seat a little bit."
Well, I mean, splitting the votes isn't the worst idea.
No.
I think it's just more of like, I think it should have been Matt, Sam, and Chris trying to pull in one of the girls. As we kind of see later in the episode, the girls start to consider, should we flip on Colin?
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, and I don't blame Matt for freezing up. Like, I mean, coming from my experiences in fans versus favorites, when you get to that point, like, everything's hectic, everything's left and right, like, it is chaos. So, like, I actually, like, totally understand that. That is, Devin's been there more than I have. But it is chaotic. Like, I totally get that. Like, 100% it is like ultimate like chaos and like a big target, potentially one immunity, and you're having to like change up your plans. I mean, like, what the hell am I gonna do now? So like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think Colin's name gets thrown out at one point. Yeah, and this is a lot of chaos with it, which I do actually really like. And again, it's the ramifications of Chris not only winning immunity, but Dolphin Sam coming back in the game as well.
Yep.
So not only are both groups tied up, but one of them's immune. Matt has his idol.
But they don't know that. They
don't know it.
They think maybe he has another one. Like, we don't know for sure.
Right.
So, it's, and then we kind of see Sam kind of going back and forth with Matt, and, Sam saying they've said your name, and Matt saying I have an idol. Like, I think I'm playing it for myself. And Sam's like, let me get all the votes to go, on Matt so that we can play an idol and make a move pretty much.
Right.
So, it is, they're them three are trying to stick together. They can tell like they kind of have to. Like, Julia's not really budging against Colin. Like, they brought that up. If they brought that up, Sam's like, would you consider going for Colin? And Julia's like, I just don't really want to. I don't know if Caitlin would have been open to it or not. I doubt it. So, I mean, it's just kind of like, at this point, it's kind of like who has an idol and who's going to play one. But we'll see when we get to the vote that it didn't go that way.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I kind of think like with Julia and Caitlin starting to talk about it and consider it, really starting to show them both starting to recognize the game, the direction it could be going, and starting to think like, how am I going to win at the end? Where Julia, I think, perceives her best chance at the end being potentially against Colin, should either of them get there. Whereas Caitlin starts thinking like, if I want to get to the end, should I keep in someone like Colin or should I go for someone else?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a lot of talk, I feel like, throughout parts of the episode with that. I know Matt also commented a couple new things.
Yeah, I think we'll add that once we get to the vote.
Yeah, once we get to that later on. Yeah. I didn't want to people think we're ignoring them. But yeah, no, I definitely think it was kind of interesting, just kind of like that talk of the girls, because I think at that point they're the last two remaining new players, so they're, I think, starting to catch on and being like, hey, like, we got to start thinking, how are we going to get ourselves to the end with the best chance possible of winning the game? And like, who should we be going with, et cetera, because you never know if it's going to be a final 2, final 3, if who's going to have the best chance. Like, example, not to talk about myself again, but fans versus favorites, that was a very hard jury to kind of picture, like, what are they going to value? What are they going to think? Like, you kind of had a couple obvious people. It's also kind of like a couple obvious people they're going to go for, a couple of people who you really have like a big question mark. And I think that's kind of what Julia and Caitlin are starting to look into, is like, who are going to be the people that, and I think it was definitely a little bit of a harder element because, just because you guys did have the edge of extinction, you guys had bits more of time to talk. I mean, I'll kind of move on from this because I don't want to go on a rant again, but I definitely think Caitlin and Julia are definitely kind of starting to go into this mindset of like, what's my best chance to win? So,
yeah, I think so, somewhat. Yeah, so I mean, the other kind of conversation before we get to tribal is just, a lot of conversations. Are we going to go for Matt? Does he have an idol? Should we split the vote? And then, I think we can kind of just head to tribal at this point. I think it kind of is going to get revealed what we want to like kind of address. So, going into tribal, it seems like Colin and the girls are going Matt. Sam saying he's going Matt, but it kind of seems like they're going towards Colin. They didn't really say it a ton, but it was kind of just like, we're not really going to go for the girls. It got brought up multiple times. Colin said, I think, to pretty much everybody that I want to keep the girls in because I think that they're an easier easier to beat than all of us each other, which I think is a fair point at this point, especially with them all being good return players.
Right.
So we kind of get the tribal, and it kind of becomes a chaotic, awesome show. Give me that damn popcorn right now. And I was sitting there on jury enjoying the hell out of it because I didn't know what the hell is going on. I don't know who's with who. I'm thinking it's 3-3, but we get to the votes. I think we can get to the votes because there's a lot to touch on with the votes. So the votes end up being, well, before the votes are read, Christian S. playing idol. Matt throws a shoot at Christian. So disrespectful, Matt. Christian did not like that. That really got Christian mad.
Did that. I was dying. That was iconic.
Christian really got mad at that. You could tell. And so Matt played his idol for himself. So then one vote for Matt gets canceled. There's one vote for Caitlin, and then there's 2 for Sam and 2 for Colin. So, it is what it is. Matt didn't need to play his idol there, but like the way it's going with them continuously going for Matt, I mean, I honestly don't blame him. I would have done the same thing. You can only play one more round. And, it's like in Matt's mindset too. It's like if me and Chris, if Sam does get out here, if me and Chris make it to the next round, maybe we can make something happen still. But
right. And definitely like the threat. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but kind of like just want to interject again. I know I've said this over and over and over with the last couple weeks with Abby's idol and the recaps and breakdowns and all that. But it's like if you have an idol and you think you're at risk, play it. Even if it ends up only even if it doesn't fully negate majority of the votes, it guarantees your safety to the next round where you can either find another idol or start negotiating even more with people to start saying like, hey, like this is why you should come work with me.
Yeah, and I'll add why Matt playing his idol in a little bit did come in handy, and it wasn't a mistake.
Right? So, yeah, I was about to actually briefly mention that too.
Yeah, we'll wait till we get there, but
it does come down. Did you already mention how the votes?
Yep, I said it was 2 votes for Sam, 2 votes for Colin, 1 for Caitlin, 1 for Matt. Matt's didn't count, so now we're at a standoff. It's 2-2. Sam and Colin can't vote. The 2 girls can vote, and
celebrity
Matt and Chris can vote. And it's told, like, the girls do know that if it's a tie again, it will come down to rocks between the 2 people remaining. Matt played his idol, so he can't get out. Chris is his immunity, he can't get out. So even though Matt's vote only canceled 1 vote, it takes him out of having to go to rocks. So, I mean, honestly, the way it worked out, it is what it is. If Sam just votes Colin with him, Colin just goes out here, but Sam was worried about an idol being played and that he put that vote on Caitlin, which honestly, he kind of, I think he got very lucky there. I think he should have just went with them with Colin, but I mean, I get it. It's tough with 6 people. And then, I was a little confused on Julia's vote for Matt there because Colin says in his confessional when he votes for Matt, for Sam, he's like, I'm just worried Matt has an idol. I'd rather just get Sam out. He's also a really good player. Caitlin gets on board with that. I'm not sure why Julia went for Matt instead.
Yeah, I can't speak on. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you again.
No, you're good.
From what I saw and heard with Julia throughout the day, I think it's probably just as we saw. Like, I think it was Julia or someone else that commented over and over earlier in the season that people felt burned by Matt early on. Like the second challenge where he threw the cups down after he lost, or like, which I thought that was kind of funny actually. Or with how he kind of kept like throwing idols out left and right. Matt commented saying the girls were so set on trying to get me to lose, they risked themselves. I mean, exactly. Yeah, I do think we kind of saw it definitely put a risk on them, with Julia being so dead set on trying to go for Matt that it literally puts her in harm's way directly. So I definitely think that if she dynamics of the game, which I never think works out that well. People are playing too personally in the game. So
yeah, I mean, if Julia goes Sam there with Colin and Caitlin, Sam goes out. If Sam falls along with Matt and Chris, Colin goes out, if one of them do that. So I think at the end of the day, people have their own agenda still. It might look like Julia's kind of just following along with Colin, but she's still wanting to get Matt out, even unless there just was, which I think we might find out next episode, there might have just been some miscommunication on their end. But still, it's just like if one of those groups of 3 that we're talking about, 3v3, get on the same page, that person goes out and they're rocking with 3 going into 5 left. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I definitely think that it definitely is really interesting to see Julia kind of start to play by herself. It's just, and not to shit on Julia, it definitely felt like it was more of an emotional move than it really was, because it kind of clearly remember her saying numerous times about how she felt burned by Matt. She didn't fully feel like she could trust Matt. Whether that comes to bite her in the future, who knows? Who doesn't know? Whatever. But
yeah. So then it's told that Caitlyn and Julia are aware that if it's a tie again, then them two go to rocks because Matt and Chris can't be voted out. So it goes to a revote, and Caitlyn and Julia are kind of talking here. They're kind of talking like, should we just vote for Sam again? Like, do we really have a shot to beat these guys if we stay in? They're kind of saying like, I feel like Colin has a better chance than we do to continue in this game, to maybe win some challenges, beat, against Matt and Chris and Sam. And, that's what they ultimately decide. So Julia and Caitlyn vote for Sam again. And Matt and Chris obviously vote for Colin, because why not force a tie? They can't go out. Why would they switch their vote? So that makes Sam and Colin safe, which is crazy. And then it comes down to an iconic tribal council, historic, of Caitlyn and Julia being so dead set and loyal to Colin and wanting him to continue the game that they're willing to risk their own life in the game just so Colin can continue on, which is crazy.
Yeah, I do think it's funny how even during the vote, there's so many funny little like conversations with like Colin, Julia. Colin's starting to freak out and be like, "Are you guys voting for me? You guys voting for me?" And then like he looks at Caitlyn, he's like, "You you voted for me," and just like I was.
Even though she didn't, and then
well,
and then they're like,
because she didn't
then
answer.
they're like, Caitlyn didn't vote for you, Colin. And he's like, what? Caitlyn, I thought you did. She's like, I didn't say I did. I was just laughing. Like,
I
so
love
like,
that little fun little play from her though. That's what I really liked. It was funny. Yeah. It was funny, like I was so glad I caught that. There's so much fun little conversations and the dynamics of that round alone, just the conversations between during the second round of voting that just made it really funny. So
yeah, and then before we get to the elimination of the rock between Caitlyn and Julia, we'll show Matt's comment here about his idol play.
I also was playing my idol the entire time. If you're wondering, I had a gut feeling the two girls and Colin gunning for me, and maybe Sam went with them to get on the good side, so I had to play. I don't think that's really a bad mindset either, because again, like they were all four of them were on their tribe expansion thing we did earlier on when we split them up. Yeah, all four of them were on Hygeia together. Matt and Chris were on Putnam, so, or as Matt likes to call it, Tribe Condom. Jokes aside.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, Matt, I mean, Matt, like all three of your idol plays at this point, I mean, the very first one with Alejandro, obviously you didn't have to play it because it was 6-4 Alejandro. And then the round I go out, I'm pretty sure it would have been a tie if you didn't play it. Or maybe I still would have went out. I forget exactly. No, you actually would have went out. So you played the second one right because you had 4 votes and I had 3. So you would have went out. So, I mean, I know, like, Christian said when he played it, let's see if you play it right this time. He's like, Christian's like, let's see if you play it right this time. Well, yeah, and in the grand scheme of things, like, you didn't because you weren't going out there. But if you don't play your idol, you potentially are going to rocks and you're out potentially. So yeah.
Well, and again, like I mean, I've said this in the past before too, but like not to reiterate it too many times over and over again. But even if people think you're wasting an idol, at least you get some protection, and as we kind of see with Matt, it gives him protection, and it does give you more time. Like,
yeah, let me go back on what I said. It wasn't it? It was 4 votes for me, 4 votes for Matt, 1 vote for Abby. So it would have been a tie.
I thought it was. Yeah, I thought
it was 4. Yeah, because Abby voted for me with the 3 guys.
Yeah, I think that might have been how it was, but it definitely because Matt probably does go home in a tie in the second round.
I think Matt goes home because if everyone stays with what they did, Matt would go out 4-3 on the replay.
Right, and to give some leniency for the first vote too, I think Miranda flipping was kind of a last-second decision too. He wasn't 100% sure she was going to flip, so.
Yep. So I mean, it is what it is, and I mean, like, it's tough. I mean, especially with Matt seeing his name so many times and how he is like perceiving people and like not giving a F about what he's saying. I mean, it's tough. You kind of. Unless you had like 2, unless you had another one at the same time, it's kind of like, I got some toys to play with. Might as well just, give me another shot. Because it is, like, get me through this round and we'll see what happens. Like, maybe I'll win the challenge, who knows. So
Right. Again, it buys you more time, and time is very valuable in this game. I think a lot more valuable than some people really may think of it. It is because with the right amount of time, you can have time to stir the pot and get people to go against each other. You can have time to win another challenge, find another idol, remind people why it's better to keep you over someone else. You know, time is very valuable in this game, and Matt playing the idols buys himself more time, gets him on good terms with people, which definitely kept him safe through the tribe expansion part of the game, especially during that section. So,
then we get back to the rock draw between Julia and Caitlin. You know, it's like they sacrifice themselves so Colin stays in. They both grab a ball, put their hands out, and Caitlin ends up having an orange ball, sending her home to be on the jury. At the end of the day, you know, it did seem like Caitlin was more competitive than Julia, like Colin even said himself. But she said to Julia, I feel like Colin has a better chance against the guys than we do, which, I mean, in hindsight probably is true, but I am not going to rocks for anybody like that. I mean,
oh, hell no, you never want to go to rocks.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I don't know. I just, at that point, like, I don't know if they understood the grand scheme of things where, like, no matter what happens, like Matt and Chris are safe. Like they're not going to flip. It's tough to vote Colin out there. But maybe one of the guys end up going with one of the girls then, with the girls and flipping on them. And maybe they have a shot to get to the final two. So I wish they would have just saved themselves there instead of letting Colin stay in. So, you know, it is what it is, but Caitlin ends up going out there. It was tough to see. I think she was starting to get into it more. I did really appreciate, like, in all of her interviews, in her voting confessional, she really, like, emphasized what she was thinking, why and stuff, more so than a lot of other people. So, I you know, it was tough to see her go, but, you know, it's her own fault. She could have saved herself there.
Right.
So.
I mean, honestly, if we ever do a second chance season and she hasn't come back before then, like, that'd be pretty fun to bring her back on. Like, the victim of a rock draw coming back in for their second chance. Like, how fun would that be? Like,
bring Ben from season 1 rock draw back in 2.
I've been saying that for years. There's so many people I'd love to see for, like, a second chance season. Yeah. Caitlin going out, though, was definitely kind of sad. Like, I thought Caitlin was very insightful. I thought she was very, like, very under the radar in a sense where I don't even think that people were going to want to take her to the end just because they didn't perceive her to be, I guess, as big of a threat. At least that's the way I perceived it. Where people were even saying that they wanted to go to the end with Julia and Caitlin. I think Caitlin correctly identifies who her best chance at the end is. I definitely think Caitlin's very underrated. And I think if it would have been like, I think Colin was one specifically saying he wanted to go further on with Caitlin and Julia. So if it's a Caitlin, Julia, Colin final, should it be a final 3?
Yeah.
Who knows who wins that? You know, I think Caitlin has a really great shot. I think she's possibly guaranteed second, possibly, just because people definitely seem to vibe with her. She's going to be kind of riding the wave well socially, and she definitely only made waves if she had to. She's riding the wave, only starts making waves when she has to, you know? She was a Survivor social surfer, as I'll call her this season. But, yeah, she played pretty damn well. So, you know, seeing her go out here was definitely kind of sad because, like, I think she was really one of the more unpredictable people for me at the moment who could have, like, taken it, like the dark horse pick, I guess. That's how I should have phrased it. Right. The dark horse pick in a sense.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, you know, if they flip on Colin there, you know, yeah, they're down 3-2 in numbers going to the final 5 here, but, you know, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I think maybe one of the guys had a plan to maybe go with these girls to take out one of their alliances, and you'll see that in the next episode. But
yeah,
before we kind of close things off, I mean, I appreciate you guys watching. You know, follow our Instagram, idol.identifiers, to stay up to date. And, you know, episode 6 will be this Thursday, the final 5, and then the final 4 finale will be next Tuesday, April 8th, episode 7. And we are planning to have a reunion. Not sure which date yet, but we're figuring that out. Richard's going to host it, and hopefully all 10 of us from the season can be on it. We're not sure yet. But before we kind of close things off, and Richie gives us that preview for episode 6.
I actually tried to prepare one earlier this time. Sorry, you go first.
No, you're good. So we want to touch quickly before we kind of end things off, before we wrap up and kind of preview season episode 6 with Richie, is we kind of just want to talk what we would like to see maybe going forward the next, you know, 2-3 seasons of Survivor Wisconsin. So, like, what do we want to see the next season? Like, do we want to see a newbie season? Do we want to see, like, a certain theme of returning? So I'll go first, Richie, and then I'll hand it off to you to kind of give what your thoughts should be. I mean, for me, you know, I'd really like, hopefully, the next season to, you know, I'll give you flowers here really quick, Richie.
I just saw that too. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, you did. You definitely, there's always some things like, end up happening that it's just part of it, but you did a good job recovering from a few things. So you did a great job.
I was surprised everyone kept saying that. Like when I'm hosting in the moment, I don't really think about that stuff. So the fact that everyone keeps telling me that, I was like, wow, thank you. Like I didn't think it went. I was worried about it, but
yeah.
it's
So
appreciated. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. So I mean, I think like season 7, like the next season, I would really like it to be mainly like new people. Like it's definitely really, it's definitely really hard to get all newbies on a whole season. There's always like a couple of returnees that get mixed in, but I'd really like to push for that either in season 7 or 8. I think then after that, a couple ideas, maybe there's like Heroes vs. Villains 2, a Fans vs. Favorites 2, I don't know, Whitewater versus Wisconsin, something like that could be down the road. It's tough because there's a lot of great players you want to see again. Do we want to use them in a bigger all-star season? Do we want them to just come back for a certain theme? So there's a lot of ideas that are there, but I think the one thing that I know for sure that I don't think we'll expect to see anytime soon is the one flaw that Matt has to say about Richie hosting.
Okay, believe it or not, I said this last week. I'll say it again because the 3-person tribe thing, that was Christian's idea to do.
Whoa, throwing him under the bus.
Not trying to throw him under the bus. There were some things that I kind of put my foot down and said I wanted, and there were some things that he kind of put his foot down saying he wanted. He wanted to do split tribe. I thought it was a pretty interesting idea. I was kind of hesitant because I was worried about it going down to that point. I don't want to throw him under the bus because I even feel bad I'm going on that much, but I don't want to shit on Christian. Like, I don't think it was a bad idea. I was hesitant with it, but I already made jokes about that last week's episode.
All right,
Matt, watch the last week's recap. Watch that for more of my opinions on that because I don't want to go into it depth and make it look like I'm shitting on Christian. Because Christian, if you think I am, I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm just stating that was not my idea.
Yeah. So okay, now Richie, what do you think you'd like to see the next like 2-3 seasons of Survivor Wisconsin?
Like specific themes or like
I would just say like kind of what I said. Like I'd like to see maybe like fully new, like mainly a fully newbie season. Like it'd be cool to see themes like Heroes vs. Villains 2, maybe Fans vs. Favorites 2, Second Chance. Like that's just kind of what I would think. But what do you think?
I definitely love a lot of like big theme ideas we do because I feel like a lot of our seasons recently have been like if they're themes, they're not relying heavily on like casting, I guess, themes, which I think it'd be fun to try to think of themes like that. Like obviously they're like returning theme ideas, like like Whitewater versus Wisconsin or Heroes versus Villains 2. Fans versus Favorites 2 would be really fun.
You guys should have called this One World 2.
We just did, yeah, we did do essentially One World 2.
Yeah.
I mean, some people probably think it's better than the original. I'm one of them. not to say anything against you on that one, actually, because you were on both, actually. I just remembered.
Yeah.
But jokes aside, like there's even some fun newbie things. Like if I was planning anything out, I would definitely think a lot into like big themes that could like change up a lot of the social dynamics of the game. That could even be new big themes that no one's ever done, whether like no one's done in Whitewater, Wisconsin, SNC, anywhere. Like I would definitely love to think of like very big like thematics. Why did I say it like that? Thematics, something very big, like
do you think we need I mean, Matt, like I've tried, like, I go to some of these Survivor events and stuff, and like I'm starting to try to get some people like in the backburn. I think that like the ideal for me, like for like the next season or two, which whether it's before the returning season or after, would be like completely all new people. They don't actually know each other like it is in the real show. They're random people. All we know is they love the show, love the game Survivor. Because that, I think, would create a lot of things. Like, I feel like that's what we're missing. And it's just hard to find people that want to play. You kind of have to get them with people they know. So that's a tough part. But, that's what I'd want to do. Like, for me, like, I know, like, everyone likes seeing big themes and big returning seasons. But for me, I think it's more important to get, like, a mainly new person cast to kind of, like, freshen it up a bit so we're not seeing the same people over again. Because there are people that haven't played in a while that could come back. But it's still, like, I don't know. in your opinion, Richie, do you think like season 7 should be a big theme, or do you think it should mainly be like newbies? Or
who says you can't do both? Who says you can't do both? Have a big theme and incorporate new players into that somehow.
Yeah,
I definitely think it could be possible. I think it definitely, obviously, depends on who is available, because not just from SNC or this season, but just like talking to people in the past, because obviously some people know, some people don't. I have been responsible for getting a few people on past seasons, like Thomas and Fans versus Favorites, Maddie, who played the last 2 seasons, Vanessa in Wisconsin won, the red shirt one, and inadvertently I apparently helped Kyle Wilson get on, and boy, that was interesting. Jokes aside about that, like, from trying to help get a lot of people on, it is very difficult, like, to get people, because like some people will definitely want to play. Like, I have a friend for over a year and a half now has been wanting to play, but just every single time something's come up, he has to work, somebody else comes up, and it just unfortunately depends on a lot of people's schedules. But like, he is like a fan of Survivor, and there's so many fun people that I know I would love to get on. Like, if I was hosting a season in the near future and I knew exact date, I would immediately start calling up people, being like, hey, I really need people for this, blah, 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 blah. And I would immediately start trying to think of like, what big theme can I go with this? Like, could it be a theme involving 2 co-hosts? Could it be a big theme where it could only involve a specific group of people that like all newbies would have in common? That could change the social dynamics. Could it be one thing from maybe all of them have a history of being in a certain area at a certain time, for example? Like, maybe it could be half and half, like half people who have never played before, half people who have played at least once before or more. I have a lot of ideas up in here that Devin knows this. I have a lot of ideas. Alex notably knows this as well.
Who?
Alex.
Yeah.
Jokes aside, but like, yeah, I have a lot of ideas, but it's also like, it's definitely really hard too, because it definitely always depends on people's schedules. Like, sometimes people, I think I was just going into this before, but like, sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. There's so many people who I personally know who really want to play. It's just always like, I don't want to say the timing, because obviously it works out the best way it does, but like,
it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough. We'll see what happens. Hopefully we can keep this going and get people. Hopefully we can do one or two this summer. We'll see what happens. Episode 5 was a great one. You guys got to check it out, and then come back here and watch our breakdown. Comeback challenge. A player comes back in the game. We get a little controversy with an idol being given after they're already out, and you get a pretty iconic tribal that comes on the rock. So it was a great episode. I think the best one yet. We only got 2 left. We got the final 5 Thursday, and we got the finale, episode 7, next Tuesday. So episode 6 Thursday, Richie, give us a little preview for those people that have watched this long.
Thank you guys for watching for this long. I'll give you a fun little sneak peek for the next episode coming this week. This week's a double feature. So sneak peek. As the ramifications of the rock draw hits some of the remaining players, everyone starts vying for their spot in the finals.
Wow.
That's all they're getting.
I'm excited. It'll be a little bit of a shorter episode. I told Richie, I thought about like kind of doing a little like on next time of like kind of cutting it off right before the rock draw to start episode 6, but I wanted to put it all in one. So episode 6 will be a little bit of a shorter episode. It was just a quicker challenge, you'll see. But the finale will be over an hour, so get your damn popcorn ready. I have a popcorn reunion soon too. We'll reunion hopefully soon too, and we'll dive into all the stuff that we found out watching it back. If people have watched it, if not, is what it is. So I think that's kind of it. Richie, I appreciate you joining me as always, and we will see you on Thursday, hopefully with another breakdown. And episode 6 will be at 6 o'clock, a little bit shorter, but it will still bring the heat.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Special shout out to Matt for the comments.
Yep, thanks, Matt. Definitely made it more fun. Appreciate it. All right, see you, everybody.
Thank you guys. Have a great night.